Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. We've had 2 new patches for Black Ops 6 Zombies in the last 12 hours. Crazy cadence and timing from Treyarch, so we're going to go through all the patch notes today and some other bits and pieces from the Zombies community as well. And before we get started, I just want to quickly remind you guys that my U2's figure, this little guy, and his whiteboard, where is it? The whiteboard's here. These are launching in less than 24 hours from now. So links will be in the description down below if you're watching this a few hours after it's come out. This guy might be on sale. Go pick me up. I'm even wearing the fit of the figure. I've just realized. It's literally, bro, it is scarily true to life. Like, if I sit here and go, does it look like me? So, we'll start with the patch from yesterday because there was a bit of controversy around that and I wanna lay it out, okay? I want to explain exactly what's going on here. So first of all, in global, they've changed it so that people were getting hit list event rewards when they should have been because there was a glitch where they weren't. And they've also changed some stability stuff where they've resolved some cases that could result in mismatched player animations between client and server, targeting Warzone, high player count MP matches, and zombies. And they've resolved a visual bug for some cases where blood effects could appear where shots did not connect with their intended target. Now, this particular point that I've highlighted here is one that has caused a lot of controversy because people have got a lot of evidence to show that the reason the people think their shots are hitting when they actually aren't isn't because of just blood splatter. It's because they're on target, but the server is not responding correctly and not functioning correctly, and so it's not registering the hits. And there's been a lot of frustration in the community about the fact that Treyarch keeps calling this instances where it's a visual bug and it's just the blood effects that are wrong, when actually it's the server performance that is wrong. And so the fact that they here have mentioned that they've resolved some cases where the client and the server would not be responding correctly is good. That is progress in the right direction. However, it still feels like there's a sort of missing element here of server underperformance just in general that should be being mentioned. And if we go to the Trello here, it's not on here. Like, there is no mention here of server underperformance on the Trello, despite the fact that people are consistently seeing that. And I've been seeing it more in Zombies recently as well. Like, since Citadel Day More came out, my game has crashed more times. My server has failed more times. I've fallen through the floor of the map multiple times. I've just lagged in general multiple times. And that's happened a lot more frequently compared to pre-Citadel Day More release. So it feels like even for Zombies, the servers have been a bit wonky. So I'd like to see that mentioned here somewhere. Now, what Treyarch has said is we remain committed to tracking and investigating reports from the community. Studio teams are always monitoring reported issues and continue to prioritize optimization of our infrastructure to ensure the best experience for all players. So I think implicit within this, they're sort of saying we're monitoring the server underperformance situation without saying it, right? But if you compare this to, for example, let me actually pull up an example here. This is a post from DMG, who is the global community lead at Bungie. And basically, Destiny's having a bunch of issues right now. And he's just tweeted this saying, not gonna lie, it's been a rough couple days. The dawning didn't kick off on the note that we intended it to. We wanted it to bring joy, relaxation, and loot, but we've missed the mark, right? Look, we've missed the quality bar during the start of the event. It's an absolute bummer that these bugs shipped. The team's working hard on addressing them. They're eager to get things back on track. We're fully aware of the general conversation around bugs, whether it be the dawning, episodic content, general Destiny 2 activities, or other. We're continuing to assess how the process can result in gameplay issues. Your feedback is felt when playing the game. It's felt when we're discussing issues in our triage sessions. It's felt when we're talking through high-level strategies. Where are we now? Where are we going? What are our priorities? Where do we want to be? This feels so good, right? And like, granted, I'm not playing Destiny right now, so I'm not really keyed into exactly what all the issues are. But the fact that he's like, we know that there's issues around the dawning. We know there's issues around episodic content. We know there's issues around general Destiny activities. Like, if Treyarch was saying a similar thing, we know there's issue around the servers, right? We know there's issues with people not connecting their bullets, right? We hear you. It's a bummer that these have happened. It's a bummer that the game is shipped with these bugs, right? If Treyarch had the confidence to say that, I feel like the community goodwill we could extend to them would be so much greater, because it's endearing. It's humanizing. It's making me empathetic to what the devs are going through, but by comparison, when you just say, we are committed to tracking reports, teams are monitoring issues, it's like, it feels so impersonal, and it almost feels like a slap on the wrist. It almost feels like, as a reminder, guys, we are tracking stuff. Like, stop saying we're not tracking stuff. We are tracking stuff, but they're not saying what they're tracking. And then if you go to the Trello here, they're not tracking the thing that the people in the Warzone and multiplayer community want them to track. So there's a bit of a mismatch there compared to this kind of communication, which just, I don't know, to me at least, from my perspective, this feels like a really, really good approach. And like, granted, there's still a ton of people in the replies being like, I love the game, but I don't feel like the feedback is felt or heard. So like, clearly the problem is still present. I just think that Jared here would feel like the feedback would be even more silent if we weren't getting posts like this, and instead it was purely stuff like this. So I would just like Treyarch to try to work towards a solution that feels a little bit more like this, and maybe also be a little bit more on it with the Trello, but we'll talk about that in a moment because it's really relevant in the zombies situation. So for zombies patch notes here, for Citadel, they've addressed an issue where excessive amounts of enemies could spawn during the Caliburn sword quest. That's good, I guess. I never had that happen. I kind of wish I'd had that happen. That kind of sounds fun, to be honest. They've addressed an issue that could cause players to be stuck indefinitely in the Sanctuary during the Soleil sword quest. That's good, right? I'm glad that that's been fixed. That's maybe like the fourth most important problem with the Soleil sword quest right now. There are more important ones out there, but still, a fix is a fix. I'm not complaining. So that's positive, right? That's good. They've resolved an issue where light symbols would respond incorrectly to splash damage during that same quest. That's probably the second most important thing to fix in there. So that's good. We're moving up the hierarchy, right? Glad to see these things getting sorted. There is still the remaining issue that sword quest completely resets if you save quit, and sometimes it becomes completely impossible to even progress if you save quit, and so that's something that I'd really like to see improved and fixed in the near future. And then we get to the biggest sort of bone of contention in this patch, which is this one. Now, I'm going to skip past it and just talk about these real quick because they're very fast. So they've addressed an issue where the main quest boss would die in one hit. I thought that might be intentional, but good to know, I guess, that was just a bug in the end after all. And they've closed an exploit that allowed the Idle Eyes Gobblegum to freeze the main quest boss indefinitely. Cool, fair enough. We all knew that was an exploit. We all knew that was a glitch. That being patched now is fine, fair. But if we just dive into this real quick, on Twitter yesterday, I started tweeting about this and I was just trying to understand, like, what's the deal, right? What is the deal with this? Why is it that Treyarch has nerfed all melee damage to the boss when we know what was actually happening was just that people were spamming the power drill specifically in speedruns only, and that was causing the boss to die a little bit too quickly, right? So like, why have we had this very broad brush approach that affects all players to a problem that was only being utilized by a narrow group of people and I don't think was really harming the integrity of the game or worth sort of patching aggressively quickly when there's so many other big issues that the game is facing right now. It would be an olive branch to the community to be like, you're using this thing, right, which we're calling an issue where the main quest boss received higher melee damage. And so like, we recognize you're flowing in that direction for a reason. We're currently evaluating, like even if they just said, we're evaluating the boss health, they wouldn't even need to change it at all. They could just say, we are evaluating the health of the boss. And they could remind us stuff that they've told us in the past, which is that they prefer to start things hard and then make them easier than having things easier and then making them harder. Like that would be something they could remind us of here. And that might be reason why they don't want to reduce the boss health right now, because they might then want to raise the boss health later and they'd be worried about that. So this is one issue I have with it, right? It's just, I feel like they could have just rolled that change out in a way that felt better for the community, but that's not the big problem, right? Ultimately, if they want to just make the boss harder, honestly, go for it. Honestly, fine. Like, I'll take harder bosses any day of the week. That's all good. It's just the method of communication for it, I feel like could have been improved. But the second issue, which I think is a bigger deal, is that the swords have been nerfed. And this is crazy because the zombies community for the last like 2 weeks or whatever has been saying the swords are just not powerful enough, right? They're just not powerful enough. And this is going to sound crazy. And again, it's insane. A nuanced take is about to appear here. Okay, so prepare yourselves. Don't take me out of context, please, like Twitter was doing yesterday. But I actually think the swords are not underpowered in most scenarios. I think that if you use them the way that they're meant to be used, and if they function the way they're meant to function, which doesn't always happen, sometimes they do glitch out, but in those scenarios, I actually think they're kind of okay. They're not incredible by any means, but I think they're decent. Could they receive a little buff? Yes. I think a little buff will go a long way, but do they need to be completely revamped and made insanely better? No, I don't think they've got that far to go. Just some small tweaks, I think, would be enough. So I think that the swords are in an okay place, but nerfing them here is nasty work. Like, that is just criminal, right? Because there's a lot of people that are like, the swords really need a power boost. There's some people like me that are like, the swords could do with a little bit of a bump. And then I think there's basically no one that's like, the swords are exactly where they need to be right now and they feel exactly as I expected them to be, right? They just don't. They feel weaker than we all expected. And so to nerf them more is lame. Like, that is just lame, right? And specifically what the nerf does is it means that their damage to the boss in the boss fight is reduced by, again, it's a varying factor because the sword damage scales and it's a bit weird, but I've basically seen clips of the swords doing like 18k, 17k damage to the boss when critting pre-patch. And I've seen clips of them doing like 4 to 5k post-patch. Then I've seen other clips of the swords pre-patch doing like 7k damage. So depending on what round you're on and a variety of factors, it could be like a 3x reduction. It could be just like a 30% reduction. But whatever it is, it's a reduction on something that wasn't overpowered already, right? We can all agree the swords were not OP and they've nerfed something that wasn't OP. And that just sucks. It's bad optics for the game. It feels like the community is not being listened to. And so for all Treyarch want to say this stuff about how they're committed to tracking and investigating, it makes total sense that the community would be like, well, you're not listening to us when we're all saying one thing, but they're nerfing stuff that isn't OP and they're saying another, right? So the problem, it comes down to communication once again. I think that if Treyarch came along and said, we're gonna nerf the swords just for the time being, and then we're gonna buff them in a later sword power evaluation patch that we have planned for next week or something, hell yeah, baby! I can live with weak swords for a week. That's fine. Like, I'm so willing to do that if it means that next week we get a proper swords pass and things get to where they need to be. Like, as it stands right now, it just feels like they're taking a very weird broad brush approach when internally at the studio, I bet that's not what's happening, right? I bet at the studio, there's a designer that's come forward to the team and said, I've looked at the data and the power drill is doing too much damage and it's causing XYZ problem or whatever, but if we nerf it, we're going to need to nerf the swords as well, because it's just going to need to be a melee change, right? And they'll be like, okay, let's do that, and then let's just fix it next week. For example, right? Let's just make the swords better next week. That might be the conversation happening internally, but we're not seeing any of the element of the conversation, which is they have intention to fix the swords and they're aware that the swords are underpowered and they're aware that we feel the swords are underpowered, right? And this comes on now to this note that Treyarch have added, which again, is meant to make them feel a bit more in touch with the community, but to me, it actually reads as them being more out of touch with the community's needs than I think that they are trying to sort of come off as here. So it says, not all bugs are created equal. So first of all, this stuff here about the power drill, are we really calling that a bug? I don't think we should be calling that a bug. So let's say that they're just talking about other stuff here, right? Some issues will take longer to identify, replicate, fix, test, and release than others, and addressing one issue can often create another. Certain bugs also need to have their fix scheduled for a major update down the line before they can go live, such as code fixes, while others can be done server-side on the back end without having to be held until a new season or mid-season launch. The team is always working to prioritize and solve issues as they're discovered. If you don't see a fix for a particular bug that you're hoping to be addressed, it doesn't mean we're not on the case. Thanks for your patience. Keep an eye on our Trello board for status updates on specific issues. So at face value, there's nothing wrong with what they're saying here, right? It is good to have reinforcement of the idea that some bugs are going to be easy to hotfix, whereas other bugs are going to need to wait for a mid-season patch or whatever, right? The problem is, if you go to the Trello board here, none, and I literally mean none, of the big issues the zombies community are facing right now are in the zombies column here. None of them. Like, I'm not being hyperbolic. Modifying attachments on blueprint weapons doesn't carry over in-game in zombies. Treyarch said they patched that 3 patches ago. It's still in the zombies column. Players lose in-magazine ammo for some weapons when applying armor plates. Nobody is talking about that. Nobody. Players can only craft and use 1 lethal or tactical at a time at the crafting table. That's like a month old, bro. So, Treyarch, I get what you're trying to say, that, like, keep an eye on our Trello for status updates, but when you're telling us that, like, we are on the case, guys, and then you're saying the evidence of this is the Trello board, and then on the Trello board, there's nothing from the last 2 weeks, that's a problem, right? So it once again, it boils down to communication. Like, I don't think the game itself is in a state here where the bugs won't be fixed. I don't think it's in a state where things won't be resolved in time. I don't think it's in a state where we won't end up at a happy medium with the boss fight. Like, I'm going to be completely clear here. I've got full faith in Treyarch to sort this out. Full faith. I do not think for an instant, for a second, we're going to get to mid-January and all of these bugs are still going to be present, right? One or two maybe might be lingering. That would be really annoying, but they're going to work them out with the days that follow, with the weeks that follow over the Christmas period. I have faith in their team. They've got a pretty good track record from Liberty Falls and Terminus. There's some stuff that took too long to address there, but it's good to see that they have got to them now, at least, like vermin being changed, for example, to make the vermin rounds shorter. There's evidence that they're trying, right? There is evidence of that. So I believe they're going to fix these things. It's just that while it doesn't feel like the community is being spoken to in any meaningful way on the zombies front, and while you're saying, like, shut up, guys, we are tracking stuff, just look at the Trello. But then we look at the Trello and it's absolutely barren. It gives the impression that you're not listening, right? And I think that that's so fixable. Like, we just saw DMG's post here was so good, right? There are industry-leading examples all over the place for crises that happen in game development, because game development's hard, right? Nobody's saying the Treyarch devs have it easy right now. Nobody, okay? So game dev is difficult, but with difficult problems come smart solutions, right? And this feels like a smart step in the right direction, and it consistently feels like a step that Treyarch doesn't take. Now, I want to once again draw attention to this thread that I created a couple of days ago, right? And who knows, maybe there's a world out there where Treyarch saw me make this thread and they saw me say, I'm surprised we haven't had a big patch for Citadel. And they saw me say they're stopping progressing in the Easter egg and they need to be fixed. And maybe they were like, hold on, we can't let Milo be all high and mighty saying we need to fix our bugs here. Let's remind him that not all bugs are created equal, right? Like, maybe that's what they're getting at here. Maybe they're trying to put me in my place. I don't know, but I don't care, because what I care about is just the bugs getting fixed. Like, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And in the response to this thread, if you just look at some of these replies, there are so many bugs that Treyarch could easily acknowledge, right? The boss fight not starting, for example, massive issue. Couldn't get craft to appear. Crashing has been an issue. The orb soft locking, the lightning rod getting stuck. Like, these are all problems that real people are having. This is not me just sort of making up problems. This is not me brigading the game in some kind of anti-Activision tirade. This is me trying to amplify the voices of you guys in-game having problems. The problems go on and on. Challenges not tracking. Like, I can just scroll for ages here, and we're gonna get to the bottom. There's probably another clip of it happening here. Put the cylinder in, nothing happens, right? Can't progress past key insertion. This is not just me, right? And I really hope that Treyarch recognizes that like, I'm not just moaning for the sake of moaning. I'm moaning because thousands of people are having problems here. I'm still just scrolling and scrolling. This is one tweet. So hopefully some of this stuff can get addressed in the Trello at the very least, so that all of these wonderful people that are actually taking the time to share their reports here, share videos of it, try and help in their own small way to get it fixed, they can at least feel heard, right? That's what I care about here. I don't care about me. I care about them. So that's what I'd like to see happen. So that was that patch from late last night. And like, also a positive thing to say to Treyarch here is that they seem to be hustling on trying to get some of these patches out, right? December 10th, December 11th, December 12th. That's a good cadence of patches. So good. I like that. That is positive. I'm not all negative, right? I respect the fact that the team seem to be hustling to try and get some patches out right now. That is good news. Now, in this new patch, they fixed some global stuff here. There's some bits and pieces in multiplayer, but specifically in zombies, they've addressed an issue where you become invulnerable after using the Rampart cannon. Good. That's good that that's solved, I guess. And they've addressed an issue where players could potentially get stuck after being grabbed by the amalgam. That's really good news, because that's happened to me multiple times. I've seen so many people thrown through the floor, thrown into ammo crates, like all sorts of stuff. And so the fact that there is a fix in the works for this is good news. So again, there is positive here. Like, there are small tweaks. The fixes to the Soleil Sword quest, positive. The tweaks to this amalgam issue, positive, right? I recognize those are there. It's just that it's like 4 tweaks, and then it's like a little bit of a, like, pipe down, we're working on these bugs message on one side, and then on the other side, it's like 1,000 issues, right? But there's no communication about all those 1,000 issues. Even if they were just like, we'll have an update to share about that next week. Like, that would suck to hear that it's going to take another week to patch all of those issues. But even just hearing them say, we will have an update about insertion causing the boss fight to not start, about the Soleil Sword quest progress completely resetting, and about lightning rods getting stuck in the ground next week, at least then I can be like, guys, it's happening next week. Let's not hold our breath now because our lungs are going to explode. We're going to die in the meantime waiting for it, right? It's just comms. It all comes down to comms. Comms. And it would be even more helpful as well if Treyarch gave us recommendations in the interim for what to do. So this happened where Hunter said, I'm 21 rounds in, I can't get the last part of the lightning sword. I said, well, okay, I would suggest save quitting because that's just a good idea to do in a scenario where you feel like the game might be bugged, right? If there's a bug, generally Treyarch advises that we save quit, reload back in, and it'll fix things, right? And the game being always online means that there's more room for those issues to happen, and that's why save quit is there partly as well, right? So I was like, save quit, and then just follow what I said in my guide here, because I made a dedicated lightning sword guide, and it's got fixes for a lot of the problems that people have been having right now. So it's really good if you've been stuck on this specific thing, getting that lightning rod part. And then he said, I just save quit and I lost all quest items and my drill is back to non-packed and gray. I'm not sure if it's a bug or not. Maybe something to note for yourself. I felt so bad. I'm like, I'm so sorry that happened. So weird that you lost all the progress. I wouldn't be telling people to save quit if Treyarch had come out in a patch note a couple days ago and said, people are having issues with the lightning rod getting stuck in the ground. Do not save quit in that scenario because you'll currently lose your progress, but we'll have a fix for this in a patch next week, right? Proactive communication in that regard could also be really amazing to prevent bad experiences from happening like this. And again, what does it come down to? Comms. Like, my biggest gripe with this game continues to just be comms, man. They're just subpar compared to what other studios have been able to do in the past. Next, Semtex has leaked that there is a future Gobblegum that seems to be being added to the game at some point called Absolutely Over There. And I'm guessing based off the name that it will be something like teleport the player to the location they're looking at. That sounds insane, right? That sounds really cool. I actually can't wait to see how speedrunners maybe use this, because imagine if it teleports you to your ping, for example, on the map, and you could leave a ping somewhere and then you could instantly teleport there. The possibilities for speedruns would be unbelievable. So if that's how it works, and Semtex is correct, or if I'm correct with the ping idea, we're about to be eating. So this sounds like a very exciting Gobblegum. I'm really looking forward to this. And Hope also has some updates about Infinity Ward's next game. Oh, sorry, Infinity Ward's next game. Okay, maybe that was mean, but they don't tend to have zombies, okay? I'm a zombies guy. You can understand why it might be a little bit of a snoozer for me. I'll just have to make DMZ content, I guess. But Infinity Ward will be utilizing Omni movement and wall running, okay, which is currently rumored to be a feature in COD 2025 as well. So wall running in Black Ops 2 Remastered next year, which could be interesting. And Infinity Ward will also be remastering a majority of Modern Warfare 3 maps for their game alongside new original maps, which is interesting because Treyarch have gotten a lot of flack for their maps in Black Ops 6 being terrible. And so if remastering old maps becomes a bit more of a norm, then maybe later in this game's life cycle or in future Treyarch life cycles, we might be able to get a little bit more on the remastered front and a little bit less on the really bad new maps front, which might at this point be people's preference. I mean, personally, I like the idea of having new maps. I think that is good, but obviously if the new maps suck, I don't want the new maps. And Treyarch said that they were going back to 3-lane map design, but then there's still loads of problems with the maps. So I don't know. It's a complex issue, but it seems like remastered maps seems to be a key part of their strategy for Modern Warfare. What, 4? I guess that's going to be something like that. So yeah, that's today's news. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Maybe I'm just yelling at a cloud. Maybe I'm just an angry old man, right? Maybe that's the case, or maybe I'm onto something here. I don't know. Either way, I just want to see the game fixed at the end of the day. And I also want to remind you once again that little Milo here is available on the YouTube's store linked in the description from the 13th of December for a limited time as well. So click through to that link now, get your pre-order booked in, and yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow for more news and hopefully more bug fixes.